Welcome back to our reflection on the Sunday Gospel, and today we're reflecting on the 13th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I invite you now to listen to the reading. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered round him, and he was by the lake. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him. While he was speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. What we've just read is part of a Markan sandwich, but the church forgot to put the bit in the middle. In other words, the story read quite well as it was, but halfway through it we have the other miracle of the four that I mentioned a while back, that the woman with the hemorrhage is healed, right? And it's faith, her faith in Jesus, that brings it about. And that really is the same thing here. We're really going back to the storm. The message of the storm was have faith, believe. And that's exactly what Jesus says to the man when everybody's saying, go back. So we've got here again the power of Jesus, and the power of Jesus coming forth, and the important thing about it is faith. And the message is, don't fear, but have faith. There are all sorts of Markan things here, the large crowds, the amazement, and then we've got the Markan secret there, don't tell anybody about this, probably because in the early part of the Gospel, Jesus is appearing as a sort of a wonder worker, and of course he does things that establishes his messiahship, but he is yet to tell them the true meaning of his discipleship. So he's careful at this stage. It's interesting. I mentioned last Sunday there were 4 miracles. Well, the church has left out the middle one, but that was the Gerasene in the other side of the lake. You'll notice today they sail back again. But when that man wanted to be with Jesus, Jesus said, "Don't come, you can't come to me, but go and tell everybody about what has happened." The complete opposite of the Messianic secret that we actually have here. So among the Jews, I think there was the fear that their expectations of the Messiah might cloud the reality of who the Messiah is. Also there, I wanted to emphasise the inside-outside. In other words, those that laughed at Jesus, he left them outside. And then he went inside with his disciples and the parents. Yeah. So again, that recognition of having faith is makes you an inside person. And if you don't have faith, you're an outside person.
I have to say, I'm thinking of Nicholas King again with this. I think it's the word that he focused on immediately. And what struck me was Mark's ability to tell such a complex story in so few words that there's almost a tenacity with each line that there's such gravity occurring in every sentence. The desperation of the parents, then the horrible neighbours that don't bother, she's already dead. It's this chaotic scene, really, which is reminiscent of the chaotic scene in the boat. This time it's the child who's laying down. Last time it was Jesus laying down. It's amazing the echo, one story to the next in these. But I think what struck me the most was that his power in that situation. The child he brings back to life, or she's not dead, or whatever, that death and life for him doesn't seem to have that same differential. He can slide from one to the other in these situations. So
your focus on immediately, very important in Mark, mentioned many times, and that's his way of joining things, and immediately, just have an immediately, that's right.
It's a very speedy situation.
Right. It's a literary technique that he uses.
Yeah, but it certainly has a lot of colour there.
I had experience just recently with some priests we were hearing for the Sacrament of Reconciliation, for First Reconciliation. And in a break, just having a cuppa, and one of the guys said, or related a story about family. And the story anyway ended up with him saying just how much parents are prepared to go through in order to provide for their children. And I thought of that in the context of this particular gospel, which I'd never tweaked to this before, but like Jairus become that kind of epitome of the care of a mum and dad for their kids, and how he, the person of the establishment, went to one who was not of the establishment and sought the help. He was prepared to pay the price of stepping outside of his comfort zone to the outsider, and the consequence is that not only was the daughter cured, but he came to believe, as did the whole of his house. There was a real transformation, and that's what kind of touched me, just out of that story around a cup of tea.
Thank you. We invite you now to look at the text, and remember, you are encountering Jesus. You're not after what Mark is saying, you're after what Jesus is saying to you in this text. Welcome back. We invite you now to listen to the reading a second time.
When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the lake. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue, named Jairus, came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him. And while he was still speaking with some people, came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And when they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this, and he told them to give her something to eat.
I took up that "don't fear, but believe." Again, I think it fits the world in which we live at the moment, to have confidence that the Lord will carry through the mission that he gave to the church, even though it doesn't look too good at the moment.
It's hard not to go with that, have no fear, believe. And I think that is something. Fear to me is that absence of my disconnection with prayer or with Jesus or with God, because the fear comes in when the prayer goes out. So yes, I think it would be to concentrate on that prayer, to letting go and handing over the things I fear.
And it's the same for me too, but I want to put it in another context, and that's to pray for mums and dads, and the way in which we see them operate and function and leave no stone unturned in order for the well-being of their kids. And that even happens, you know, in their conversations with members of parliament or local authorities or whatever. They're prepared to step out and to take no for an answer. They won't take no for an answer, yeah. So I want to pray for them that they continue to be a source of inspiration and not to have fear that will inspire me to be like them and not have fear. So.
We invite you now to draw something practical that you can take from the gospel and apply in your life. Remember, what begins in the gospel is meant to end in your life, in the living of the faith that you have. We need to spend a little time in prayer to ask the Lord to give us the strength, the courage to implement what we have decided to do. Because sometimes when we decide to do things, it's not acceptable to the people around us, and they try to perhaps push us back to where we were. So it's important that we have the grace to go and do what we wanted to do. Thank you for being with us again. We are grateful that you devote this time. We believe one of the great things that the Vatican Council did was to put special emphasis on going back to the scriptures, not just as an academic study, but as a meeting with Jesus. And we hope that we have been facilitators today in helping you to meet Jesus in the text that we have considered. So we conclude now with our reading of the prayer from the liturgy of the 13th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
O God, who through the grace of adoption chose us to be children of light, grant, we pray, that we may not be wrapped in the darkness of error, but always be seen to stand in the light, the bright light of truth, through Christ our Lord.